right, so welcome back to the channel. I know you missed us for a little while, but we're back. This is Conversations with the Crawleys. My name is Kevin.
I'm Tarsha.
And here we have conversations about faith, family, relationships, and we do recaps, reviews, and commentaries on our favorite shows. And shows that were like, we finally made it to the end of it. So, Love is Blind. Yes, we missed the wedding episodes. We'll catch up on that. But the reunion special, we just watched that. So we got a lot to talk about. So you know what to do by now. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, request notifications.
And share.
We'll see you in the comments. Consider becoming a member and checking out the merch store. All right. So, yeah, there's a lot, and we'll touch on it. I know y'all have been using all of your sources and finding out all the stuff as far as what's been happening in them Instagram and TikTok streets, as far as Jackie and Marshall and Josh. And all right, so just as far as the couples that got married, we have Tiffany and Brett, which that was a
no-brainer on that one.
Ooh, we're surprised. All right. And then there was Zach and Bliss, which...
Yeah, that could have gone either way.
It could have.
And they said yes. So I was like, okay, as long as she dealt with the fact that she was the second choice.
Yep.
And they were meant to be, go for it.
More power to them. And then Kwame and Chelsea, which I'll be honest, I was a little surprised.
I thought he was going to say no.
I thought so too.
Because of the pressure of his mom not being there.
Yep.
And him not deciding to, knowing if he wanted to change states and all that they portrayed about, him being he was in Portland, right? No, he was in Portland.
He was somewhere, she was someplace else.
Right. So living in Seattle.
Right. And then, who was the other couple? So then Paul left, or didn't leave her, but he told Micah no.
Now, this one, I was a little surprised. I was assuming it was going to be more on Micah's side, that she was more of a maybe, and Paul. But we saw a lot of Paul questioning. So it was like, okay. And Micah did say, I'm going to let him go first. She's like, she wants to be chosen.
Yes.
And she does let him go first.
And he said,
nah.
Now, I don't know if you caught this, and I didn't talk to you about this, but did you catch... He has a breakup MO. He has a breakup script that he uses.
What do you mean the breakup script?
Because if you go back to when he was in the pods, and he's like, I'm making the choice that's best for both of us.
Oh, he says that.
And he says something like that very similar at the wedding. So his way of saying it's not you, it's me, it's not you, it's me, is saying I'm doing this for the both of us.
That's a good way of saying it. Because it does end up being for the both of them.
Yes.
Even though it may not turn out well for the other party.
That's his breakup script. So I call him out on it. That's his breakup script.
Well, and when he indicates that his no is because he couldn't see Micah being the mother of his children.
Right.
Is one of the reasons.
One of the reasons. We'll get to that.
Right. So, but we're like, okay, well, you do need to see that. You need to see children and see who that person's going to be in your life.
And then, as everybody I'm sure knows by now, Jackie and Marshall's whole thing, even though this happened a year ago, Jackie put everything out on Instagram. And we'll talk about that as far as the reunion. So, I don't know. Let us know if y'all were waiting up for the reunion, because we actually had something to do the
I wasn't feeling well. So, but I saw things like, what's going on? So I don't know what time it came on last night.
And then it was like, I saw on Twitter, there was some other streaming companies that were like, hey, Netflix, y'all good? Y'all need some help over there? So we start off the reunion special, and Josh and Jackie are not there.
Right. They indicate they weren't going to be there.
They aren't going to be there. So
it's like, okay.
All right. That'll come into play a little later. Deal with Brett and Tiffany. No one's big surprised by them. They do, give her a little teasing about her falling asleep. They're as far as what we can see, it seems to be a couple that I don't see any issues for them. I think they both are mature enough to work it out, and I think that they care enough about each other that they'll move forward. I mean, they'll stay together. Is what I should say.
Because they kind of mention or allude to the fact that Tiffany had to move.
Right.
Which makes sense. They had already mentioned that Brett works as
Nike.
a director at Nike.
Right.
So I would move too if it came down to positioning.
Because if you're making director money and she's making recruiter money,
so it's probably easier for her to transfer or whatever.
Right.
So I get it. Change of scenery. Also just leaving her family if her family lives in her state.
Yep.
So there was a lot of adjustments of her getting used to and getting around. I can imagine. I don't know how often or she's been there before, but just but you could still tell how much they care for each other and they're growing in their relationship, and I wish them the best.
Absolutely.
It takes a while to settle down, and they still have to learn each other because within 2 or 3 weeks they're married,
right?
And so now they have to take the time to learn everything about each other.
So then we start to get into the messiness of Love is Blind. So they first talk about the triangles, because there are several triangles this season, right? So the Chelsea-Kwame and Micah triangle. So they bring out the unseen footage of after they were back from Mexico, because if you remember, Chelsea was going to have a conversation with Micah when they were in Mexico, right? Chelsea's like, bring me to go, let me talk to her. But it started raining and everything, so that stopped that. So they did end up having that conversation out walking their dogs and talking about the issues after as far as the pole pool incident. Now, bear in mind also, this was before they had actually seen the video. So before Chelsea had seen the footage and heard the audio, they're having this conversation in real time because this is the only time they have it. And so a couple of things that were there from that, as far as like Chelsea was like, I didn't realize that it was that strong between you all, because he was telling me that he was going to break up with you, but you were saying you were going to break with him. And Micah's like, oh, he was going to break up with me? Because I didn't get that memo.
Only thing I can say is that Chelsea handled it as best she could.
Yes.
And she was like, okay, it's over. And Micah was like, I'm sorry, I tried to make a joke. It's not a big deal. She's like, if I was looking on the outside in, because by this time, Irina had tried to mess with her and Paul's situation. So now she can kind of relate to what Chelsea's saying about seeing someone flirting or what it could look like.
Right.
And she said, looking on the outside, I could see where you're coming from. If my man is still talking to me, talking to someone else for a period of time after the incident's all over.
Right.
So, she's like, I apologize. And they leave and go their separate ways.
Yeah.
In that scene, which is fine.
Yeah.
Chelsea's just like, I'm glad it's over in the air. We really never got to finish what we wanted to make sure that was squashed.
Yep.
And she's like, I'm just letting you know, that's my man. We're together. We're good.
Yeah. And Micah, there was a couple of times where they were like, Micah needs to grow up. You need to be mature. You need to what have you, right? Kwame also does take some ownership. He's like, you know what? I need to apologize to Chelsea. I need to apologize to her family and all of y'all that were rooting for them. So notice I said all of y'all that were rooting for them. I'll give Kwame, I'll give him kudos for recognizing and saying, you know what, he's got ownership to take, rather than everyone because a lot of people are putting things on Micah. It's like, no, but he got a part to play in it too.
Oh yeah, definitely so. And it's good that he understands now.
Yes.
Because, when you're looking at it in real time, you feel like Chelsea's more involved and committed to the relationship than you kind of were seeing on Kwame's side.
Right.
So it turns out more you rooting for Chelsea to be in a good relationship than rooting for Kwame in this sense.
Right. So, something else that was said was Chelsea said that the conversations between Micah and Kwame after Mexico, she's like, those were conversations that were edited to push a narrative. Because she was basically saying they had the conversation, so you can't put words in their mouth, but if you're taking out parts of the full conversation, she's like, you were basically pushing in the narrative that there was still something between them. And Kwame was like, no, after we left, He's like, I had nothing for her. In fact, Kwame was like, in all honesty, we were starting to feel a disconnect even before they exited the pods. He's like, so the whole thing of him really kind of pining for her made great TV, but they're basically like it wasn't real life. So, and then the other thing, as far as if you remember, Kwame had the issue of his mother was not necessarily for the wedding. And there was also rumors, some of y'all was pushing the narrative or the rumor that the sister was not his sister, that she was a stand-in.
I wouldn't think, he didn't seem like the type of person that wouldn't want to do that to his family.
Right.
So you have to think, if you're going to put an actor or actress in for your family like, why don't you just invite me?
Yep.
I think that would just had another problem, and the mom would be even more upset. So I was like, y'all going too deep on this. This is reality TV show. It's not that deep.
So yeah, that was his sister, and the mother has been met now by Chelsea, and things are good.
Yeah. So. I mean, I feel like Chelsea comes across just a very genuine person.
Yep.
And even for her to learn her husband's last name and how to pronounce it and everything, I was like, I think she's going to be fine.
Yes. So that was pretty much it for them at this point. Zach and Bliss, they do talk about them. They, again, if you remember, Zach had left with Irina, got to Mexico, was like, oh, this ain't it. And then called up Bliss, was like, hey, I made a mistake. Oops, you made a mistake. That's all, and mistakes can happen to anyone. All right, and so Bliss that was Electric Company or Zoom or something like that.
I don't think I watched that as a child.
Don't say you didn't watch Electric Company.
I did watch the Electric Company, but that wasn't Electric Company. That was not.
We'll find out afterwards. Okay. It was one of those PBS shows.
Okay.
Anyway, trying to put me on blast like that. So then, Irina and Zach, basically the whole Irina and Zach thing, focusing first on just Zach and Bliss, they are still together. If y'all remember, Bliss's dad was like,
he wasn't having it. He was like, you don't fish, something else. It was all sports related. Yeah. Like, you don't do none of these things. So how are we supposed to talk?
Like, you talk a lot, but you don't say nothing. So, but now Zach and her dad are cool. They're best buddies.
They're good terms.
They
talk. Phone calls.
Yep.
So that's good.
Good for them, right? And Zach was sporting a beard now, so he was trying to do something a little different.
Yes.
But then that brings up, of course, the mean girls of Ready to Love, or Love is Blind.
They tackle the triangle first.
Yes.
To keep in that narrative.
Yes.
So that's when Irina walks in.
Yes.
And so she starts talking, trying to explain her actions on the show, because obviously they got the receipts, so they're showing, her, and she's apologizing, and the crowd is laughing.
Well, first of all, they were like, Irina, is there anything you want to say?
And the crowd was laughing.
She was trying to muster up some tears, but there was no water flowing. Them tear ducts was dry.
Well, she was getting a little bit of her own medicine.
Yes.
Because as she was laughing at some of the girls who were crying within the pod, they were laughing at her trying to cry. She
took the speech from every politician, every person that has ever done something wrong, and they're like, I'm sorry for my actions. She took all of those speeches and pieced them together and made a rambling mess of nothing. It was just like, what are you saying? She's just putting words together.
She should have just kept it simple. Just kept it simple. I was immature in the decisions I made in the pod.
Was or am?
Huh?
She still is immature.
Well, for her, if you come on there, you're going to say, I was immature. You're not going to say, I am immature.
Yeah.
So, but she could have just kept it simple and apologized, because she mentions about, triggering people who could have been bullied. Because I can imagine the comments about being bullied, like, I know who you are, you're, blah, blah, blah. So what they didn't ask, and this is what I would have brought up. I would have gone back to Zach. Now, Bliss was trying to warn you, Zach, stating...
That's a good question, yep.
Stating, that...
She ain't really what she's saying.
She's not really what she's saying. She's not coming off. She's not coming off as a good person, Zach. Mm-hmm. But you kept defending her.
Yep.
And now seeing the actual videos, what are your thoughts about what Bliss was trying to get across to you?
Yep.
Because that would have been a great question to bring up.
Yep.
Instead of letting her go on for 10 minutes saying...
Just rambling. It was like...
Nothing at all.
Not saying anything.
Bliss and Zach do state that they have made up and she has apologized to them directly. Mm-hmm. And how sorry she was for the whole incident and everything that happened.
Zach was coming with it this reunion. Zach was
he had all his notes.
Because he was like, look, I'm going to just say it like this. You just came on this show to get famous.
He sure did.
Yeah, you just came on the show to get famous.
Well, and they kind of give the timeline of when they saw each other, mm-hmm. where she was no longer interested.
Right. And
she wanted to call it off, as she's indicating through her long speech. But she says the producer says, well, you at least need to talk to him and explain why you're calling it off.
Yes.
So
now there are some of y'all. I saw some of y'all and just on the internet streets, thinking that Irina and Micah may have actually not been trying out for Love is Blind and may have actually been trying for some other Netflix dating show, Perfect Match or something like that.
Oh.
And then y'all know how producers will sometimes say, oh, but you'd be a great fit for this show. So that may be also the reason or help to explain why those two may have even connected and why, especially with Irina, why she just did not seem like she was there for marriage.
Gotcha. So, okay. That would make sense. That would make more sense.
They said Bartiz from last season was also the same thing. He tried out for a different show, and they pulled him over to Love is Blind. So it may make for great TV, but if your whole goal is to really, help relationships... Yeah, that ain't gonna be it.
That's not gonna be it.
And but they're not the only show that does it. We know that Married at First Sight does it, and other shows too. So.
Oh yeah, definitely so. But that makes more sense.
Yes,
because you get a different quality of person who's ready for marriage and who's just wanting to have fun, whatever. So they would fit into that mold.
Because there's also the thing where Irina sent a message or sent a DM to Bliss right after they got to Mexico. It was like, girl, you dodged a bullet. So Bliss is like, oh, so that's what we're doing. And Irina didn't necessarily, she later on, well, when that was brought up, Irina was like, yeah, I was going to bring that up. No, you weren't. If they didn't bring it up, you was going to bring it up.
No, you don't want anything else that people didn't know to now come out about yourself.
Yes.
But it's out there now.
Yep. So
they kind of resolved and went through that. Then they mentioned
Paul, Micah, and Irina. Mm-hmm. Because y'all remember Irina started going for Micah's dude. Mm-hmm. And now what I did not particularly care for was, and let me just say, I had some issues with Vanessa Lachey and how she was handling the questions. And
she was kind of grilling people pretty hard.
She was grilling people really hard, but sometimes she grilled the wrong person. Mm-hmm. So, like, she's grilling Paul, because Paul, at least as far as what we saw in the videos and stuff, Paul wasn't necessarily feeding into it. Mm-hmm. He was just kind of like, and then he was like, hey, your girl is feeling on my leg. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't come at Paul, be like, why didn't you, like Vanessa did. So she was going at some people sometimes the wrong way.
I believe so. And so, but I understood, and Paul was able to articulate very well. He's like, me and Micah had already set our boundaries. Mm-hmm. And so with that being the case,
it didn't violate our boundaries.
It didn't violate our boundaries. I knew how far we could, I could hang out, go, whatever, with whoever.
Right.
And so I was secure in my relationship.
Yep.
I was secure when Micah was talking to Kwame.
Yep.
And I was secure when I was talking to Irina.
Yep.
So we were good. No big deal.
Not an issue.
So, which makes sense when you create boundaries and you have a good communication with your partner, you're good.
Yep. So then now it pivots to Micah and Paul, and of course their relationship, and they are not together because if you remember, he kind of he left her or said no at the altar. And so they kind of get into that. But first, and this tells you kind of how real time this was. There's a video that's been floating around like TikTok and Instagram and social media of Paul basically when he's leaving out from talking with Micah. There's basically a portion where it seems like he taps her friend on the tush. And so Vanessa's like, you gotta explain that. And he's like, there's nothing there. It was just, I was leaving out, bumped in, we bumped up and kind of saying, I'm sorry, what have you. But the look on Micah's face told me that there might be something else there. And the reason I say that is because if you go back and you watch it, she was very, very teary-eyed, very emotional, even during that portion as far as them talking about it. I don't know. We'll see.
I don't think there was anything to it because the person walks past right at the moment where you just see his hand. Because I've done that and said, oh, excuse me. I've done the same thing.
But on the behind?
What are you talking about? My hand is down low, so I go, oh, excuse me.
All right, I'm just saying. He explained it. Her response, as far as Micah's look, didn't seem like that was. It didn't seem. It just seemed like there was something else there. We'll see. Maybe we won't see.
Right,
we won't see.
We won't
okay,
see.
But y'all form your opinion. Y'all let us.
Obviously, they formed their opinion. That's why it was going on the internet. But I don't feel like Paul would just out of the blue just tap someone else's behind while he's going in to consult someone he just said no to. It just out of what we were seeing about him,
right?
He doesn't just seem like the type out of the blue just tapping somebody else's.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense.
All right. So then, getting into Micah and Paul, basically, she said she was going to say yes, but she wanted him to say yes or give his response first because she wanted to make sure that he chose her for her. Well, I hear that, and it gave her the answer that she was looking, or not that she was looking for, but he gave her the honest answer. But isn't that what everybody's supposed to do when they get up there? No matter who goes first, you're supposed to say what you want to be chosen because you're being chosen.
And Paul's like, that wasn't going to change my decision.
Right.
That wasn't going to change my decision.
Right.
Now, Zach was claiming that Irina was saying that she wasn't going to marry Paul anyway. That wasn't the goal. That Micah wasn't talking about marriage a lot anyway when it came to Paul. So, obviously, we're only getting what's on the producer's table, right? They'll cut the tape and it's edited and this is what we see.
Yeah.
So they do make a lot of claims that behind the scenes while things weren't taping that Micah wasn't really feeling Paul.
Yeah.
And Paul knew that. And so it was kind of like telling Micah like, okay, Micah, you're putting a lot of feeling into this when you really weren't feeling it.
Right.
So
yeah. And then also with that was the whole thing of he couldn't see her as a mom. So, and it sounds as if she hadn't heard that until very recently. So for her, the wound of being told, part of the reason that maybe, because again, this happened last year, as far as the weddings and the whole process. For her, she's hearing just now, Friday, when we're all watching the marriage episodes for Love is Blind, she's just hearing that the reason she was turned down was because he doesn't see her as a mother. And she's like, but she's wanted a family. She's, she's the only child, and her mother, I guess, had a difficult pregnancy. So she's like, that's what she wants. That's what she's looking forward to. And that's what she's talked about. And Micah's like, but you were the one talking about Paul. You were the one who was like, I could maybe, what if I don't want to be a father down the road? And so she's like, don't put the whole, you can't be I'm not a mother thing on me when you don't know what you're going to be as a father. And Paul then starts to say, well, I couldn't see us as parents. He starts kind of shifting.
He starts shifting.
It was like, bruh.
Just stay true to yourself.
Just say what you're going to say and be done with it.
If you don't see that her as a spouse and the mother of your children, that's you.
Right.
You're saying she doesn't fit what you see as a mother for your child.
Right.
Right. And if that's how you feel, that's your opinion.
Right.
I mean, no one can fault you for that.
And the only thing that Mike can do really is just prove you wrong, period, at some point in her life.
And it's not proving him wrong because still for him.
True.
And what he sees or thinks
about her,
a wife and a mother should look for him and his family.
Yeah. It
still wouldn't occur.
Yeah.
So.
So Zach also then, again, Zach was like, look, I'm a lawyer. I'm going to go ahead and interject too.
Can't help it so.
Objection, Your Honor.
Well, it's more because Vanessa's like, you're having a side conversation.
Yes.
While we're talking to Micah and everything.
And
so
Paul and Zach seem to be good boys, right? They seem to be good friends.
Yeah, they're good friends.
And he was basically like reminding him, one, they don't see everything that you've seen, and there's stuff that's happened behind the scenes that they don't know, right? And basically he calls Micah out for coming to the reunion for blood, right? He's like, you came here rather than just talking about your experience, what have you. It looks like you're coming. And yes, Micah was, in some respects, playing the victim.
Yes, but I don't think she was coming after Paul. I didn't get the...
Yeah, I don't think she was necessarily coming after, but I do think that she was playing the victim.
So, yeah, I think she was playing a little bit to that role.
Yeah.
But overall, it wasn't like, I'm out for Paul today.
No.
I don't believe that. But Vanessa seemed like she kept grilling people, even with Kwame and Chelsea was, grilling that situation with Micah as well.
Yeah. Because that segment went on a little too long for me.
I think it went on too long, and Kwame had to keep explaining stuff, which I think, again, he did well in saying, look, this is just how it happened, and that's it. There's nothing else to it. Everybody's moved on except you, Vanessa.
Right.
So.
Well, then speaking of basically how she was very aggressive with people that were on the stage with them, Jackie and Josh couldn't make it.
Or decided not to
come. It's more like it, right? Because I'm sure that they're paying for it. They were able to be there together for the video. So I don't get it. So basically they're in a Zoom meeting with Vanessa. And Vanessa is just like talking to like best friends.
Like she interviewing them on The View. Like, this is not a commentary of their story on Netflix.
No.
This is about you getting so that everyone can kind of get to the truth.
Right.
The review is for everyone to get those questions like, okay, what was going on with you and Marshall that you felt like y'all weren't a good match?
Right. Because when in the first few episodes of Love is Blind, we only saw maybe a quick segment of Josh and Jackie, right? But then we see a longer segment here. And even there, Josh is like, I'm not really an emotional type person, like the other guy, And that's where Jackie first calls Marshall soft, right? So Jackie and Josh are still dating.
They live together.
She says that she's grown.
I like what Jackie was saying in the video when she was leaving Marshall's house. Maybe I shouldn't be with anyone.
I need to grow up. I need to.
Maybe I need to work on myself.
Yep.
I wish Jackie took Jackie's advice.
Yep.
And worked on herself.
Yep.
Because whatever was going on with her and Marshall and the way she was depicting Marshall, because men are multifaceted, they're three-dimensional. You can't peg them all the same.
Right.
And I felt like her working on herself was a great idea. But instead, she jumps in from saying she's in love with Marshall, she wants to get married with them, having all this conflict, and then moving on, within a couple of days, right into another relationship.
Yes. So, again, there's been lots on social media. There's been the text messages of her and her friends, essentially almost intimating that he could be gay. He's got sugar in his tank, what have you. There is a basically it seems to have been leaked from a producer or someone that works on the show, because there is also things out there saying that Marshall was upset because he found her herpes medicine before they actually consummated in Mexico. So there's lots of going back and forth, lots of things that we haven't really addressed because we didn't do the previous show, but these are all things that are coming into play right now as well too. She says that Marshall called her a derogatory name, and Marshall will address that in a moment. She also, as far as the ring, says that Marshall wanted to keep the ring because he wanted to propose to another castmate. And again, there is no pushback from what's her name, Vanessa.
Vanessa doesn't say, where do you hear this from?
What would give you that impression?
What would give you that impression? Because this man said this ring was for you. And if you're now with a different man, why would you keep a ring from someone that you're no longer with?
Right.
And then I will ask Josh, how do you feel that she can open up her jewelry box at any time
and still got a piece of Marshall?
And still got a piece of Marshall in her jewelry box?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that was Marshall sharing his love to her.
Yep.
And now she just has it as a trinket or whatever.
Yeah. Every time she wear it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and they're just like, oh, well, it's so good that you're having a great relationship. And again, there's nothing wrong with her deciding to be in a relationship with Josh. Absolutely. It's the manner in which she decided to handle it.
And she does point out that, again, we recognize that there's editing on all of these shows.
Oh, right? Yeah.
She does point out that she had already broken up with Marshall before she went on the coffee date with Josh. Cool. Got it. Understand that. But basically it was how you are in some respects, because we're looking at it saying she needs to work on herself.
Oh, yeah.
Period.
Based off of what she was displaying on the show, right? Because at first I thought Vanessa was really going to attack the issues of what was going on by saying,
she ain't do none of that.
You didn't show up to the dress fitting, which would be understandable if you decide that this is the person not for you.
Right.
But why didn't Marshall didn't know that you didn't show up?
Now, there are some thoughts. There are some people that are saying that he knew. He just went for the TV time.
But guess what? We don't know, right?
Right.
Because it was never asked.
Right.
And then Marshall was never able to give a rebuttal.
Right.
Because Vanessa didn't ask the hard questions, so that the viewers who were questioning, was Marshall looking for more time? And he wasn't surprised, which it looks, he did really well. He looked really like he did the job, like he was really surprised really well about what happened. But we don't know because they didn't show up, and Vanessa, in his offense, then said, well, I'm going to ask the hard questions because Marshall's going to be, because she says, Marshall's going to be sitting beside me.
Right. So now after that, she does ask Marshall some questions. And if you notice, it seemed like she got a little aggressive with Marshall from the beginning, right? So there is, again, that allegation that Marshall called her a derogatory term, right? And he's like, we joked with each other. He's like, she said stuff about me, I said stuff about her. And he's like, I'll tell you, I said her jawline is kind of, she had a strong jawline. Like, she does.
She does got strong.
Right?
She does got strong.
She has a strong jawline. Right?
He wasn't lying,
So, but he's like, the derogatory offensive term that she's alleging, he's like, that's not my vocabulary. He's like, I don't use that term. I wouldn't put that term out there. He's like, I'll take responsibility. Yeah, me joking about that, we went too far. He's like, I'll take responsibility for that, but don't say I did that when that's not the case.
Exactly. Because at the same time, don't be also calling him something he's not.
Right. Because here's the thing. Because Vanessa was like, I don't believe that. And it was like, okay, but you have the text messages of her calling him all of these things, and you don't check her on that. that seems to me like there's an issue there, right? Because you can't, you got to be even-handed.
You have to be,
because
when you're
in both
hosting.
of these, well, not only that, but in both of these, in every relationship, there's issues on both sides.
That's true.
Whenever you go to counseling, you're going to find that there are issues that you have and the other person has. And so you need somebody that is objective. And so Vanessa was not objective, in our opinion, in this whole thing, because she focused more on Marshall's faults and let Jackie kind of escape free, right? No issue with Josh even, because Josh he's pursuing what he wanted to pursue. Jackie's pursuing what she wanted to pursue. It's just the way that it occurred, right? And how she handles some things. And so even about the ring, he's like, look, I chose that ring. She does not deserve to have a symbol of my love, because that's what that symbolizes to him. So that was pretty much it.
Yeah, I could tell Marshall was like, I was slighted again.
Yeah.
You know, I was slighted the first time out of the opportunity to even decide if I wanted to marry her.
Right.
Now I'm slighted again because they decided not to show up.
Because you're asking me questions and they can't defend themselves, and I can't defend myself with answers in real time. Because he was even like, it's hard for me to even know how to respond, because there was like a 3-4 minute video. How do I respond to all of that? Because there were so many pieces and points out of there that we needed to talk through. So yeah, I get Marshall's point. And at the end of the day, she was like, well, you can talk to them. You know, they're looking at the camera, maybe or maybe not. You know, but he was just like, I'm tired of this back and forth. I'm not fighting with you no more. It's been a year. He's like, I don't care about you.
I don't care about you anymore.
And
supposedly he's moved on.
Yeah. Right?
I don't know if he's still in the relationship or he started talking to someone.
There was somebody that was a castmate that
kind of reached out.
They kind of talked a little bit as far as talking, texting, what have you. They went out on a date. Nothing seemed to come of it. So he's like, even for you to say that I was going to get, engaged to somebody else, he's like, there was no one else. There was no one else that I was feeling that way with. There's no one that was at that level. So for her to say that again, had she been there, they could have that conversation and she could say who it was. And he could say, no, that's not even the case.
Exactly.
But he's having to defend himself against the video.
And you could tell even when he went to Brad and Tiffany's wedding, he still looked a little distorted. Like he was like distraught still about what was going on. So
then, as far as the rest of the reunion, it was just kind of showing the couples in their everyday life. Their apartments, what have you. They start doing, looks like the 3 couples have gone on vacation together. Again, because that is kind of a fraternity for them to be, a connection to be that way. And then Vanessa is ready for somebody to have a baby. Okay. All right.
And everybody we're not having a baby.
Is she going to pay for it?
She going to pay for 18 years?
All right, then.
So, you can want other people to do things. But again, I think everyone's trying to take their time. You got married in 2 weeks. Yes. They've known each other 5 weeks.
Give it a little time. And then, because even Tiffany and Brett, they're like, we're enjoying ourselves. We're traveling. We're getting to know each other. We're strengthening what we have. And then when the time is right, they'll have a baby. But stop trying to rush people that just got married. Granted, it was last year. But they have only known each other for a year and 4 weeks. So that was pretty much it. We'll see if they do a season 5. I think they already have a season 5 in the books, just kind of getting it ready for that. We'll see. But then let us know what we may have missed. Let us know your thoughts. And we'll see you next time. Have a great one. Be blessed.
Bye.